Glory be to God, Mighty God Ministries. This is episode 18, and we're going to call this The Name. What's really amazed me is how things have changed so much. Before, at least when I was growing up, you had a name, right? And that's normally your name that you got, like, when you were born, your parents gave it to you. But in reality, again, a lot of it's a lie from the devil because, we know that God is the one who actually gives us our names, and that's planted through our parents, what they decide. But again, that's God who does that. And one of the reasons why we know that is we look at the Bible verses and different things like that. We know that there's a couple things that tell you that, which are really cool when you think about this. Like, again, when you think of how sweet God is and how powerful and magnificent he is, it says he has everyone's names tattooed on the palms of his hands. On the palms of his hands. So I don't know about you, and again, I used to hang out, this is a long time ago, but I knew some people that did some tattooing and that kind of stuff. But like, when you think about it, if you tattoo a name like on the palm, like, look at your palm, how many names are you gonna get on there? And then you think about, like, how many people in the world right now, and I think it's around like 8 billion, or I don't know the exact number, but 8 billion. And then you think of, like, that's just now, that's currently, right? It's not talking about, like, in the past, and all that. You think about, God is so powerful and amazing that he has everyone's names tattooed on the palms of his hands. Like, think about that. How powerful is our God? Like, he's like, his palms got to be like, it's just like unfathomable to the human mind. Like, when you think about some of these things, we take for granted. We think we put God in this little box, right? And he is this majestic, powerful thing. And I'm sure we can't even comprehend it, but, like, it's got to be like the most amazing thing you've ever seen. Like, if you're in that type of presence, it has to be, because when you think about that, like, he has our names written on the palms of his hands, everyone's name. I mean, that's just like, whew, blows my mind again, and it's amazing to think that we serve a God, that is that powerful, that has that. And the other thing it says is, what does it say? It says he knew our name before we were in the mother's womb. So he knew your name before you were even born, because he created everything before it happened. And there's free will, obviously. So, you do have free will to do what you want, but he knows everything you're going to do. He knows it ahead of time. And again, that's just another amazing thing. And it shows you how powerful your name is, when you think about, like, your birth name that was given to you. But what's crazy is, what really is crazy is, I've been seeing this, and it's been the last couple of years, how, like, so many people, for whatever reason, I believe it's lies from the devil. I believe it's the world, the power, princes and principalities. I don't believe it's the people, but, they either don't like their name, they want to change their name, they want to modify it to be something different. And, it's just amazing how, the devil can do that, and he can make people think like you don't have a good name, or, but in reality, again, you have to go with the truth. And the truth is that, God is the one who that's how you got your name. Like, he knew your name before it happened, and you have a special name, and that is one of a kind. Yes, there might be other people with that name, but they're not you. They weren't created like you, special, uniquely, one of a kind, in his image, and have special, different talents. So it is so important that, um, this is just my personal opinion. This is not, I don't, this is obviously not biblical, but I just, when I look at some of these things and I see it, I've seen how, like, a lot of different places I worked at, people change their name, and instead of going with, like, the name they have, they want to modify it. So, and again, that's okay. What you do, that's everyone's, preference and your personal opinion. But, it's funny. I'm proud of my name. Like, and people call me, there's some nicknames they might call me, but, I'm proud of my name because God gave me that name, And what's funny is that, everyone, you should be proud of your name, because that is a special name that you got, that is one of a kind, and you are the only one like you, you know. You are the only one like you. So don't be, one of the things I want to tell you is don't be ashamed of your name. Don't be afraid to put your name down. If you have one of those long names, a lot of these names are beautiful. You don't have to change the name and shorten it or something. There's a reason why you have that name, and names are very powerful. And I can tell you my story because I actually had to reach out to my parents because I knew parts of the story, but I didn't know the whole thing. And it's amazing. Maybe ask your parents this. If they're still living, maybe get the information, because a lot of these things we take for granted, that they're going to be, our parents will be around forever, and they're not. They won't be around forever. So a lot of things that if you have questions you want to ask, even if you're a little kid, or you're younger, ask your parents now, because it's amazing what you can learn. And again, a lot of this thing you don't even think about until you have kids, but it's cool to know how you were named. And I ended up calling my parents. Was this yesterday or 2 days ago? I can't remember the day. But I ended up calling them up, and I ended up asking, because I knew there was a story behind our names, and I knew they were biblical, because my name's Jonathan, and then I have two brothers. That is David and Daniel. We call him Danny, but it's Daniel. And then my sister's name's Joanna, and each one has different things to their name. And each one's different. Each one has a middle name, except for me. It's a little bit weird. I didn't get a middle name because my name's longer. So I was asking my parents about that too, like why I didn't have a middle name. Which again, I don't care. But they felt it was a longer name, so they shortened it. And it actually was a blessing in disguise, because when I fill out paperwork, I never have to put a middle name, which is really nice. You just put your first name and your last name. So it's just funny how these little things are like that. So I'm calling them and I ask them, the different names, and I wrote these down. It was either going to be like either Brian or Ryan was one of them. Anthony was one of them. And then the funny thing is because I had two brothers, and it was David and Daniel. Then the other thing was going to be, my dad was joking around, he was going to call me Dino. So it'd be, Dino, David, and Daniel, or we call him Danny, but just, Daniel is the real name. And they're all biblical names, obviously, from different stories. But it's just funny how that works out. But, what happened is they had these names sort of like picked out. And if you're a parent, you know this, because you sort of like you might want certain names, or you have some ideas of like, oh, I want this name or that name or whatever. You sort of have an idea, but then it comes to the time, and you make a final decision essentially. And like I said, I believe God knows. He knew the name. Like He knows that name and what you're going to be. So that's the great thing about it. Be strong in your name. Stand tall in your name. Don't be ashamed of your name. You'd be surprised how many people you run into, and they may think, oh, my name's not this or that, but then, you hear their name and you're like, that's a sweet name. And there's some people that got some really cool names, and each one's unique and specially made differently. So it's really cool to have that. Again, you don't want to be like the world where everyone's the same. You want to be unique and special, and you are. You are, because you were created by a God that has everyone's names in the palm of His hand, which I can't even fathom that. But that's the truth. That's in the Bible. It's the truth, and it's really cool. But in my story with the name, what ended up happening is they basically were sort of breaking it down to those different ones, and there was a nun, because it was I was born in St. Elizabeth in Youngstown, and it's still open if you're familiar with the area. But I was born downtown Youngstown, and there was a nun that came in, and they were saying the names, and my mom said when she saw me, and then the nun also like confirmed it, like, no, he's John, his name is Jonathan, and that's how I got my name. But it's just crazy how there might be a story behind it, or maybe your parents had different names for you, and then they chose the name that God gave you, essentially, that He knew before you were in your mother's womb, before it even happened. So it's a short story, but it's cool. And like I said, just gives you an idea. One of it shows the glory of God. And again, this channel is to glorify God. So that's one is just like when you think about that verse, that is powerful. Your names are tattooed on the palms of His hands. Like, that is powerful. It just goes to show you how powerful our God is. Someone like that, again, it's nothing for Him to part the Red Sea. Nothing for Him to do it. He'd make superheroes look like they're like like regular muscle men compared to Him. It's just not even comparison. He's all powerful. So that's a really cool thing, again, that you glorify God. But you know what? This is a good example of something. Maybe ask your parents, if they're still around. If not, maybe ask another family member or something like that. Just ask them that story, because it's interesting to see, how did you get your name? How did they come up with that? And see if there's a background story, if it was something special, or something that, again, that maybe the Holy Spirit guided them on that, put that in. That's how you got it. And again, I don't care what your name is. There's some, keep your name. Your name is powerful and it is strong. And again, you are one of a kind. There is no one else like there. If once you're gone, there's no one else like you. There is no one else like you, because God made everyone created specifically, uniquely in His image, and it's one of a kind, different. So just like the flowers you go outside and see, all different shapes, colors, sizes, and that, there's no one like you. There might be someone that looks a little bit similar, but they're not you. Because God didn't make it like that. Everyone's different. There's special, unique things about them. So we're going to make this a short one. God bless you. Again, if you're not saved or you're not even sure, read that salvation prayer in the description below. It is the best thing you will ever do in your life. I promise you, there is nothing like it. It will start a journey that you will get to know God and love Him. And it is the best thing you can ever do. I promise you, it will start a journey, and there is nothing like it. There is no one like our God, who has our names tattooed on the palms of His hands. Nothing like Him. Nothing like it. God bless you. See you in the next one.